Spider-Man No Way Home was one of the biggest blockbuster movies out of the entire year of 2021, and it was the biggest comic book movie to have ever dropped since Avengers Endgame. And the end of Spider-Man No Way Home has a lot of us Spider-Man fans very excited for what the future of Spider-Man in the MCU holds after this movie. But you guys already see the title of this video. This is how I would personally do Spider-Man 4, or better yet, this is my personal pitch for Spider-Man 4. But first and foremost, let's get over some ground rules, obviously. I kind of want to stray away from showcasing certain villains, like the MCU's version of Norman Osborn, the MCU's version of Doc Ock, Doc Connors, and etc. Basically, the only reason why I want to stray away from those characters is simply due to the fact that we saw them already in the third movie, so I don't think we need to use them again, personally, in my opinion. But the Norman Osborn thing is kind of a touchy subject, because I'll get into that. Next is to not bring back MJ and Ned just yet, but at least for the first movie, in my personal opinion, I think we need to feel the weight of the loss of MJ and Ned to Peter, because No Way Home just happened. So I think we need to give it some time until we can introduce them back. And on top of that, this is kind of the hypocritical statement when I stated that I don't want to have the MCU's version of Norman Osborn on here, because Oscorp obviously doesn't exist, supposedly, according to Norman Osborn in No Way Home. For me, I wouldn't introduce Harry Osborn yet. I haven't thought of kind of a retcon on how to introduce Harry Osborn into the MCU, so I'm not really sure yet. But obviously, let's now get into the video. First and foremost, the main villain for honestly the entirety of the next trilogy, in my opinion, should be Tombstone. Tombstone is kind of one of Spider-Man's most underrated villains, in my personal opinion. I'm happy that he's getting a lot more love now than he was back then. But so far, that's all we need to know. So now let's just start off the movie, and I'm gonna read off my script. So first and foremost, the movie starts off and Peter's life is pretty stressful. But it's shown that Peter is finally attending college at Empire State University after getting his GED, but he is on a partial scholarship. And while having a somewhat of a pretty stressful time in college, he's kind of befriended two people that he knew back in Midtown High, and those two are Jason Leonello and Cindy Moon, for example. And for Peter's home life, we obviously know that he lives in a one-bedroom apartment near the Rockefeller Center in Midtown. So he needs to gain some funds in order to pay the rent and all the other bills that he has to pay. So then we obviously get a montage of Peter doing a few part-time jobs. Mostly both of them are just going to be him being a dog walker and him being a pizza delivery guy. Let's go with that. Until while he's out on a delivery, he sees an ad at the Daily Bugle. They are hiring photographers for the Daily Bugle newspaper. And then we cut to a scene where we see Peter walking up to the Daily Bugle building, because I think J. Jonah Jameson came up crazy throughout his entire Spider-Man slander arc throughout No Way Home. So I'm assuming that J. Jonah Jameson has some bread now that he did that. But so we're gonna see him walk up to the Daily Bugle building, give him some photos, and obviously mirror that scene in, I think, Spider-Man 1, where J. Jonah Jameson says crap, and then gives him like $200 for those photos. But we can just change that and then just do where he obviously does say crap, and then he said he'll hire him once he gives him better pictures. And then obviously Peter does that and he gets hired. So then we cut to prison gates being opened on the outside of the actual prison, and then we see Mac Gargan finally being released from prison and him finally being a free man. And then we see a limousine pull up right in front of him onto the curb. And once the car finally pulls up, we see the limousine driver get out the car and then open the door for Mac Gargan. And then who do we see in the limousine? We see Lonnie Lincoln, aka Tombstone, inside of the limousine. So now we're going to give some context as to why is Tombstone in the limousine in the first place, and why is he picking up Mac Gargan from prison. So ever since Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, was presumably killed by Echo at the end of Hawkeye, there was a huge power vacuum in the underworld of organized crime. So obviously, Lonnie Lincoln rose up to the occasion, took the opportunity, and now he is extremely wealthy by being an organized crime lord. But on the other hand, Spider-Man is clearly messing with Tombstone's agenda and what he wants to do for the entire underworld. He obviously wants to control everything in New York City, and he wants the Spider-Man to be taken out. So that's why he got Matt Gargan out of prison, because he needs someone to take out Spider-Man. And obviously, for some odd reason, Matt Gargan has something against Spider-Man as well. Maybe because of the scar he gave him during Spider-Man Homecoming. So then Tombstone speaks to Matt Gargan inside the limousine and tells him that we need to kill the Spider-Man. And don't worry, I have a partner for you, and he is someone that you probably have crossed paths with. So now we cut to Spider-Man getting hired while giving these amazing photos to J. Jonah Jameson, but then he realizes that his spider sense is going haywire. So then he looks out the window, and then he sees the Shocker doing some nonsense. Why don't we just fuck it, let's just say he has a giant duffel bag and he's just wreaking havoc throughout the streets of New York City near the Daily Bugle building. So then Peter Parker tells J. Jonah Jameson, I gotta go, something came up, I'm sorry. And then obviously J. Jonah Jameson clearly gets irritated by this. So then Spider-Man swiftly apprehends the Shocker. All the police cruisers pull up, but coming out of one police cruiser is Tombstone. So Tombstone introduces himself to Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's spider sense is going haywire once again because there is something wrong with Lonnie Lincoln, and there's something not right. So then after that, Peter just abruptly tells Lonnie Lincoln that he has somewhere to be, and then he swings away. Then we cut to the part where Peter Parker is trying to figure out who is this Lonnie Lincoln guy. So then Peter figures out that Lonnie Lincoln actually has his own business that is a huge conglomerate, and he is a millionaire with its own building located in New York City. So Spider-Man decides that he needs to infiltrate this building to figure out what is he up to, because something isn't right. So Spider-Man infiltrates the building, but then at the corner of his eye, he sees a shadow just run past him swiftly. And obviously Peter chases after this mysterious figure, and that mysterious figure is revealed to be the Black Cat. So then Peter asks, who are you? And then Black Cat simply and subtly says, I'm simply looking for answers. And then Peter asks, are you looking for answers on Lonnie Lincoln? And then she subtly says yes. So they do their thing, and they're obviously searching through his office, and Peter finds out that Lonnie Lincoln is not the person that he is. He's not a businessman, he's not a philanthropist. He is actually an underworld crime boss. But Peter isn't surprised by this, and then he says that Tombstone needs to be stopped before he does any more damage to New York City. And then Black Cat says, you're very attractive when you're determined, Spider. And then she disappears, and Peter is just confused. So then the camera cuts to Tombstone having a conversation with Matt Gargan and Herman Schultz. It is revealed that Tombstone was the one that released Shocker out of jail after what happened. So then Tombstone, he introduces them to the Evolution Project, and the Evolution Project is basically kind of similar to the Super Soldier Serum, but a way more perfected version of it. So basically, if they do this entire experiment, they become peak humans with super strength, super speed, all the athleticism in the world, and everything else. They obviously agree to do the experiment. So after the experiment is done, Tombstone obviously gives them their suits. So Matt Gargan's suit obviously is heavily armored and also has a Scorpion's metasoma with poison in it. Then the Shocker obviously has his own armor, but with giant gauntlets that, shoot out shockwaves and stuff. And honestly, for Shockwave, I wouldn't be upset if I were to use his comic book suit. Even though it's very, very, very campy, it's alright. So they could go the military grade route, or they could just go the pure comic book accuracy route of it. But for the sake of this video, I'll go more of the military grade route. So then once they get their suits, Tombstone says now it's time for us to kill the Spider-Man, and now they try to devise a plan. So then we cut to Peter having his everyday life, doing his normal things, being late to class, being late to work, and all of that. And now he finally clocks out of work, and now he's walking back home to his apartment at night. While Peter is walking back to his apartment building, his spider senses start going haywire once again. And then he turns around and then he sees a car in the air being thrown at him. But then obviously Spider-Man evades, and then he gets away for a little bit just to get his suit on. And once his suit is back on, he finds out that Scorpion and the Shocker are wreaking havoc in the streets of New York and terrorizing citizens. So obviously Spider-Man's gonna swoop in and try to save the day. So throughout this 2v1, Peter Parker, for the most part, is kind of holding his own, this, that, and the third, throwing his punches, doing whatever he does best. But then he got stung by Scorpion, and then after that, he gets absolutely pummeled, and he is hallucinating. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. But then, while Spider-Man is getting beat down, a limousine pulls up. Tombstone walks out and tells them that's enough. We'll get him next time. And they all go away, and Peter miraculously gets up after being stunned and is hallucinating like crazy, and he has to find a way to make it to the Empire State University campus. So he miraculously does that, and then he goes to the chemistry lab and somehow, some way, creates a antidote for Scorpion's poison. So for the next few days after that, Peter Parker, he is just in a trance. He is very much guarded at every point because he doesn't know what the hell is going on, and he is trying to devise a plan to see what can he do to stop them. Until one night when he's walking back to his apartment, ironically, Black Cat arrives, and she tells him that they are going to recruit more and more individuals to try to attack you, and their next stop is going to be Australia, so we have to attack them now before they get on that plane. So then we cut to Tombstone talking to Scorpion and Shocker, talking about this new recruit that he has for this team, and he talks about how this person is a mastermind when it comes to hunting animals, wink wink, and he's going to be a great addition to the team. And he's saying all of this while they're boarding the private jet. But obviously Black Cat and Spider-Man, they swoop in, and now they're about to get into a fight. But the thing is that Black Cat and Spider-Man, they're obviously at a disadvantage since now Tombstone is getting involved with this fight. Peter is throwing everything, and he's fighting with a lot more aggression than before. But when he keeps hitting Tombstone, it's like he's hitting a wall of bricks. Obviously, Spider-Man is strong enough to punch through that, but you know what I mean. It's basically Tombstone is getting unfazed by everything he throws at him. So now, the next plan for the three is that Tombstone has to get on that jet no matter what. So now the whole fight is going down. Tombstone somehow, some way, sneaks his way into the private jet, and the private jet soars into the air, and Peter cannot catch up. And now the Shocker and the Scorpion are absolutely battered, and now Peter shifts his anger towards the two, and he starts destroying them. Basically like the scene in No Way Home when Peter continuously punches Norman Osborn during the final fight. And then he is obviously calmed down by Black Cat. So basically for this movie, we're gonna show very, very, very small hints of uncontrollable aggression for Peter Parker after everything that he's been through in the past. So obviously Peter chills out and apprehends the two, and now they're being sent to a maximum security prison now. So then we cut to Peter and Black Cat on a skyscraper, on the roof of it, and Peter tells him, I think we make a really good team. I think we should really do this a lot more often. Then Black Cat kisses him, and then she tells him, don't push your luck, Spider. And then she runs off, jumps off the edge. Peter walks up to the edge and looks down, and Black Cat is gone. Then Peter says, oh well. Then he jumps off, then he has his final swing, and then the camera cuts to black. But then we have a scene right after that. We look at the back of a truck. It could be like an ice cream truck or something. So then on the license plate, we see the symbiote crawl out and start crawling all over the ice cream truck license plate. And then the symbiote jumps off and then starts crawling towards the apartment building that Peter Parker lives in. And oddly enough, somebody else opens the door and then doesn't notice that the symbiote crawled through the door, and now the symbiote is in Peter's apartment building. And then that is when the mid-credits start to roll, and then we have our mid-credits scene. So we cut to Peter walking throughout the Empire State University campus, I don't know, doing something. Then he's approached by Jason Nianello, and then he gives him this invitation to a party at his house. So Peter's like, you know what, let me live a little, let me do that. So he gladly accepts. So Peter pulls up to the house, knocks on the door, and who opens it? It's MJ, and she now has bright red hair. Peter is distraught, and then MJ says the iconic line, "Face a tiger, you just hit the jackpot." End credit scene is Tombstone finally arriving in Australia and then meeting up with a man named Craven the Hunter. And he tells him, I heard you have experience with hunting animals. I have the perfect animal for you to kill in New York City. And then the camera's cut. Alright, so that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know this isn't very good. I'm not great at rewriting films, I guess. Well, not rewriting, but writing films in general. This is just very bare bones and basic. Nothing too crazy and too devious. But let me know in the comments below how I did. And I'll see you guys in the next one.